Hi, I'm Tricia Morris from Club Scrap, and you've arrived at the Tiny Blossoms Page Kit Workshop. This is a special release collection from Club Scrap, and the instructions can be found right on our website under the Resources tab. Search the Special Edition Kits, and you'll find that Tiny Blossoms collection there. And I've got my kit here, my copy of the instructions. I'm using a Fiskars guillotine style trimmer, and I have to admit it's kind of an important component of this method and the success you'll find if you try scrapbooking the Club Scrap way. And I also am going to be staying organized with my Accordion pocket file organizer. This is something that you can make for yourself. I do have a little starter kit and a video that's included with it to help you construct your very own organizer. Basically, it gives us 4 pockets so that we can trim all the papers required for 8 12 by 12 finished pages and keep them organized by page. So once we get the trimming done, we can just put our trimmer away and we're good to go. So I'm going to put the lip of the organizer underneath my trimmer, which then holds the organizer vertically so that it's easy to access all of those pockets. The next thing I'll do is set aside all the embellishments and ribbons that came in the kit, isolate just the papers, and let's put the paper into the order we'll be using it. I like to hold it upright while I grab the sheets, and then I'll put them on top of my trimmer. So we're going to begin with this large floral print. So find just that one sheet and put it face down on your trimmer base, and then find one sheet of the small floral print. Pretty easy to identify there. Put that face down. Next up, there's a seafoam, almost like a greenish seafoam color, and then there's a deeper color in here, so let me help you tell the difference here. Here's the seafoam, it's lighter. There's the aqua. So I want you to take 2 sheets of the seafoam. There are 3, and you'll also notice that there is like a linen texture on this seafoam paper, more on one side than the other. So put the texture side facing down. Again, that was 2 sheets. Next, find the 2 sheets of aqua. That's the darker color I showed you earlier. There are only 2 sheets included. Put those on your stack, followed by 1 sheet of light pink. That'd be this guy. 1 sheet of the beautiful dark pink. And then from the back of your stack, you're going to find 2 sheets of images. There's one that has really wide borders on it. Let's go with that one next, face down. And then you've got one that has like the 2 dark aqua borders on the right. Put that face down. Then let's go with the remaining sheet, the large floral print. And then there's 1 sheet of soft white. It has a pretty texture on it as well. I'll put that with the texture side down. It's kind of harder to tell on this one what's the right side and wrong side. It really is not going to matter. Then we're going to grab the 2 sheets that you have left of the light pink. So 2 there. Then 2 sheets of dark pink. And it gets so easy now that we're at the end of the pile. The small floral print and finishing with the seafoam. Again, let's put the texture side facing down. Take the entire stack, flip it back over to where we began, and that's going to be the first sheet of paper that we trim with our paper trimmer. So I'll turn to page 1, and I do like to set up my space so that my instructions are on the right, my paper is on the left, and we'll just be grabbing it 1 sheet at a time. And I want you to place this first piece into the trimmer so that the top of the print is at your left. So you're basically just rotating it. And we're going to begin at the number 11. So lift up the blade, find the hole number 11 here, double check that the paper is touching that top edge so that it's nice and straight with the blade. I'm finding 11 inches. And before I make that slice, I will stabilize on this clear bar. And there you go. Now don't move anything. What I want you to do next is rotate the paper clockwise so that it's right side up again. And now I want you to trim at 5 3/4. 5 3/4. All right, this is the smaller, this is the larger, but they both get stacked neatly together, and place these in pocket 3 and 4. When you do that, I just want you to make sure it's in there kind of at an angle, sticking out the edge of the pocket so you can still see the number of the pocket on the left. And if you're not using the Accordion pocket file, don't let that stop you from making these pages. Just have 4 piles. The difference is that you just require more space, right? Because if we can use our vertical space to stay organized, I consider that a win. Then you had this little strip. We're going to use that in layout 1 and 2. So I'll put that in the pocket labeled 1 and 2, again sticking out the right end. Don't try to shove it down in there. Moving to the next sheet in the stack, which is the small floral print. We'll start out at 11 inches. And again, as we cut, just allow the paper to pile up. And then 10 inches. 8 3/4. So to find that, if you're newer to measuring like this, I always just find the whole number 8. And then I'm going to go left 1, 2, 3 columns. Each column is 1/4 inch. Again, stabilizing here, I'll slice. And then 7 1/4, so that's find the whole number 7. Go left 1 column. And then 4 1/2. So 4, going left 2 columns. All right, we just made a bunch of strips, and I have not disrupted the order that the strips fell. That way I can say, grab the next one, and everything is where I think it is. So this larger strip here, pocket 5 and 6. Then the next strip, pocket 1 and 2. The next one, and we're getting smaller and smaller in sizes, pocket 3 and 4. The next smaller one, 5 and 6. The remaining 2 strips are probably the same size if everything went according to plan, and those go into pockets 7 and 8. Now pick up just one of the sea foam. So double check that you have just one sheet there, and it's a heavier weight. So sometimes it's like, is it 2? But it's really just 1. There should be 1 on your trimmer and 1 to your left. Our first cut on this one is a really big number, 11 3/4. So find the 11, go left 3 columns. Push your hand on the bar and then slide all the way down to 6 1/4. 6 1/4. I'm just going to pause for a moment. If I'm going way too fast, go into your YouTube settings. There's a little gear button somewhere on your YouTube channel, and then you'll find a setting called playback speed. You can just choose 0.75, and that will really slow me down so that you can follow along. And I promise, eventually you'll get the hang of this process and you'll go full speed with me, and your efficiency will be even greater than it was before. Okay, so this piece that's in our trimmer, we're going to rotate it and cut at 11 3/4, 8 1/2, and 4 1/4. You've made 2 pieces that are exactly the same. Those are going to go in pocket 1 and 2. Then you have one that's a little bit narrower. That will go in 7 and 8. And there's a really small piece that fell. I'm sorry to inform you, it's a scrap. We're not going to use it. Don't save it, okay? It's a scrap, don't worry about it. Then take the next large piece to the right of your blade of the sea foam. We'll trim it at 8 and 4. And grab all 3 of these pieces that are the same for pocket 3 and 4. And then this really skinny piece from the end, we're going to use that in layout 1 and 2. Okay. By the way, it does not matter what order something goes into the pocket. It can be front, back, middle. As long as it's in the correct pocket, it doesn't matter what order it's in. Grabbing the next sheet of sea foam, we're going to trim this one at 6 1/4. And then rotate the 6 1/4, and we'll cut at 8 1/2 and 4 1/4. The piece in your trimmer, place it in pockets 7 and 8. The piece that fell next, pocket 5 and 6. Then there's this piece that's kind of skinny again. We're going to pick him up and cut it at 6 and 3. That gives you 2 rectangles that are the same size for pocket 5 and 6. And once again, there is a small 1/4 inch piece that fell. That is another scrap, sorry. And then the larger piece that fell, we'll trim at 11 1/4, 7 1/2, 3 3/4. Gather up the 3 pieces that are the same, and they're going to go in pocket 5 and 6, leaving us a tiny scrap. Sorry, there's a lot of scraps going on here. Not that bad though. All right, now we have 1 sheet of aqua. You have 2 there, but just grab 1 because sometimes they can stick together. I don't want you to cut both this way. Our first trim on this one is 11 3/4. Then 11, 10 1/4, and 6. Rotate the 6-inch piece. We'll trim at 8 and 4. All 3 of the pieces that are the same size, 5 and 6. Pick up the next wider strip. We'll cut it at 6 1/4 and place the piece from your trimmer base in pocket 1 and 2. The other piece that fell is going to go in 3 and 4. And then we have some narrow strips. The widest of the 3, I guess there are 2 the same. One of them of the same goes in pocket 3 and 4. The next one in 5 and 6. And then we have our final skinny guy in 7 and 8. The other sheet of aqua we'll cut at 6 1/4. Rotate and trim at 8 1/2 and 4 1/4. I made 2 photo mats here. One of them is going to go in pockets 7 and 8 and the other in 3 and 4. And the rectangle will trim at 4 1/2 and 2 1/4. The piece in your trimmer, let me see if I can find this color. Dang it. All right, the narrow strip that fell, we're going to cut that horizontally here at 6, 4 1/2, and 2 1/4. And the piece that's right here in your trimmer, place that in pockets 7 and 8. And then the next 2 pieces together, they're different sizes. They go in 3 and 4. Then we have this other larger piece. We'll cut this one at 11 1/4. 8 1/2, 4 1/4. You have 2 pieces that are the same. They're going to go in pocket 3 and 4. And then you have this rectangle. We'll trim at 5 1/2 and 2 3/4. And you just made 2 squares. Those will be placed in 7 and 8. Once again, a very, very small scrap was made. This next strip will cut at 3 1/2. Now it's really pretty narrow here, so I like to bring the paper down a little bit so that the edge of the paper rests against the line beneath the inch markings. And again, that's 3 1/2. Believe it or not, this piece is the scrap, and this smaller piece will be used in layouts 7 and 8. You'll see, I promise, every cut has a purpose. All right, now we're moving on to the light pink. We're going to once again trim it at 6 1/4. Rotate and cut at 8 1/2 and 4 1/4. All 3 of these pieces, even though they're not the same, you'll have 2 the same, 1 is skinny, they all go in pockets 7 and 8. Then the remaining strip, we'll trim at 11 1/4, 7 1/2, 3 3/4. And grab the 3 pieces that are the same, pocket 3 and 4, And you have a scrap. Wow, gee whiz. Moving right along to that dark pink, it matches me today, kind of. We'll cut at 11 3/4, 11 1/2, 11 1/4, bear with me, 11, 10, 9, and 6 1/4. Rotate as always. We'll cut at 8 1/2 and 4 1/4. Two pieces that you just created are the same for pocket 1 and 2. Let's trim this rectangle at 4 1/2 and 2 1/4. The piece that's in your trimmer, pocket 1 and 2. The other rectangle that fell, 5 and 6. And there's a smaller rectangle that I didn't use. Apologies. Then we pick up this strip here. It's 2 3/4 by 12 right now. We'll start at 10 1/2, then 8 1/4, 5 1/2, 2 3/4. Now gather up all of the pieces. You're going to have a square, then you're going to have a smaller rectangle. All of those go in pocket 1 and 2, and then there's this really skinny rectangle. I didn't use it. Then you have 2 strips that are the same size and a little wider. Those are going to go in pocket 1 and 2. And then you have 4 really skinny strips. One of them goes in 7 and 8. The other 3 are placed in pocket 5 and 6. Now we have arrived at our Cutaparts, and I'll just say this every time. There are instructions to remove the paper outside of the corner cutting guides. So when you do that, just line up the guide with the edge of your blade, give it a trim, and then rotate until basically you'll end up with a nice 12 by 12 that we can work with some accuracy here. I'll get rid of my little scraps and then place this in the trimmer so that the words "to still be quite beautiful" will be on your right. Okay, so our first cut here is going to be at 10 1/2, then 10, 9 1/2, 7, and 3 1/2. This large piece right here, pocket 3 and 4. And then the other larger one that says "Picture Perfect," that'll go on 5 and 6. This next piece we'll trim. Make sure that the turquoise flower is on the right, and we'll cut at 9 1/2, 7, and 4 1/2. This piece goes in pocket 5 and 6, and the remaining 3 squares, 1 and 2. Then you have this sweet little border that does not have words on it. That's going to go in pocket 3 and 4. The one that says "Flowers are love's truest language," 5 and 6. And then this to still be quite beautiful is 7 and 8. On the other piece here, we will once again line up that little guide. Sometimes I will trim just shy of the guide mark and clean up that last trim on my final rotation. The key is to be able to see the outside edge of your silver cutting blade on your trimmer base. And rotate. It might take you a little bit longer to get used to this process, so go ahead and pause the video until you have this step taken care of and you've gotten rid of those little scraps that fell from the end. Now make sure the word "Spread Kindness" around, that should be on your right, and we'll begin 11 1/4, 10 1/2, 9, 7, and 4. Rotate the 4 by 12 and trim at 10 1/2 and 6. This larger piece goes in pocket 3 and 4. And then we have these sweet little images here. I'm going to take scissors and do just a rough cut. And you'll notice there's like a little glow line on the edge of each image. Just follow the glow line and fussy cut these elements into their separate images if you're in the mood for it. You could also just skip the fussy cutting if this isn't your cup of tea and omit those images. We have the larger leaf image here. That's going to go in 5 and 6. And then you have the little accent leaf and the 2 flowers. That'll be for 1 and 2, all 3 of those. Then we have the little purple image. That's going to go in 3 and 4. Pick up the next strip. We'll trim at 10, 8, and 6. The large aqua image for pockets 7 and 8. Then you have a pink horizontal journaling prompt for 7 and 8. Then you have a peach one for 3 and 4. And the cute little orange flower, 3 and 4. This next strip has the word beautiful. That should be on your right. We'll cut at 11 and a half, 9, 6 and a half, and 3 and a quarter. The pink, 1 and 2. The peach, 5 and 6. The purple flower, 1 and 2. The bloom, pocket 7 and 8. And the little beautiful, don't forget him, pocket 7 and 8. You should have a border strip with the rest of that expression from the other cut apart. That goes in 7 and 8. And then you have your 2 aqua cut aparts for pocket 1 and 2. And congratulations, that concludes all of the trimming for all 8 layouts. I know that was a lot of cuts, but they all have a purpose, they all have a plan. And if you got one of the cuts wrong, don't worry about it. It's just gonna make your layout a little different than mine, and that is no big deal. So let's get rid of our trimmer, but before you do that, make sure you lock the blade on that knob on the lower right, and then support your accordion pocket file so it doesn't fall onto the floor. So I'll set this on its back from now on. The trimmer is really designed to hold it upright, so now it's going to lay on its back. And I have this remaining stack of papers here, and I also have my instructions, and I'm going to have you turn to or scroll to page 4 at the bottom where it says layouts 7 and 8. And my process of assembly involves assembling our pages from layout 8 to layout 1, so that when you adhere things down, you can work back from layout 1 down to 8, and you'll have everything in its place and you'll know exactly what you're doing. So I'm going to take the entire stack of remaining 12 by 12 pages, and I'm going to take just the top sheet, which is the larger floral print, and scoot it to the right. And then lay them side by side like this so that the soft white with that felt finish is on the left, the large floral print is on the right, and now I have the base for layouts 7 and 8, and that's how I've ordered the papers for you. So next I will reach into the pocket labeled 7 and 8, or find the pile that you've labeled 7 and 8, and make sure you grab everything out of there, including that teeny tiny little beautiful. And I do just want to mention that this is your pile of scraps from all 8 pages. Not bad. It's a little bit more than I usually have, but it's just how the cookie crumbled this time. I still think it's an acceptable amount of scrap compared to how it is if you don't follow any kind of a, if you just follow a whim and you don't really know what you're doing, you just cut random sheets of paper all willy-nilly. I've got a plan for you. All right, so let's get this assembled. I'm going to begin by placing these narrow, tiny floral prints right along the edge of the white here. One at the top and one at the bottom. And then I'm going to take this narrow dark pink strip and place it right up against that piece. And then there's a narrow aqua strip that will go at the bottom. It's already looking so sweet, isn't it? Then we have our title. So Wildflowers Show Us at the top, and then To Still Be Quite Beautiful at the bottom. Now that creates a little frame for the 2 larger light pink mats, okay? And then in the upper right page, we're gonna add that seafoam mat, the narrower pink, then a narrow seafoam nested with the cut apart sentiment. Your aqua mat will go down below. And then in your kit, you have the little sleeves. So I'm going to take this piece and slide it. It's like a room key sleeve, but prettier. That's going to go in there and then placed here. Then we've got this little bloom that I just kind of tucked it in like so. And then the word beautiful is going to nest with that tiny little piece that we had. I did round the corners of mine, but I think it looks fine even if it's not rounded. Bloom beautiful. How sweet is that? 2 of the aqua mats that remain go here. And then we have our journaling prompt to sit on top of the tag. And that layout is pretty much ready to adhere. Let me show you a few details to consider as you're finishing it. We've got on the layout 8. I did wrap the sleeve with 2 layers of ribbon here, the dark pink and the aqua. And then I attached the journaling prompt with foam adhesive circles after rounding the corners, just some detail. Here I punched a slot into the tag with my slot punch. I'll put a link for that in the description of the video, and then stapled a double layer of the ribbon to the right of that. I added the seafoam satin ribbon, 1 stretch of it that ends here right at the back. I've secured that with tape. Then I took another smaller piece of ribbon and tied it onto the stretched ribbon to add that sweet bow. Here I've got the little confetti. I chose some pink dots to lay on to the page. And the way I do that is I take my needle tipped glue applicator and I add little dabs of glue to the page. Then I used like a tweezers to bring the sequin to the glue. I found that that works really well rather than trying to put glue on the sequin and then add it that way. Just put the glue on the page. Works like a charm. I did transfer the sequins to a little bin that I had on hand, just something that I upcycled. And before I put all the sequins into it, I did rub it with a dryer sheet to remove some of the static that tends to be common with things like that. So some tips for you with the sequins. Now on the other page, I made a loop of ribbon, the same seafoam ribbon here. I just kind of made a little loop like so, and then came back like this, like a figure 8 loop, just like that. And then I secured that and put it behind the sweet little flower. So that's a little tip for that. I did 1 here and 1 here because I was out of ribbon. So I only had enough for 2, but I think it looks great. So I used bookbinding glue. No, actually I used my dry ATG adhesive to add this to these spots. Worked perfectly. Everything else is very straightforward. One other little tip for you when you're adding these really narrow strips, the same rule applies as it does for the sequins. So once I add this piece to the page, I add my glue along the edge of the paper with the nozzle and bring the paper to the glue. It just is much easier. Works like a charm. I'm going to now pick up that soft white paper and scoot it over and stack it on the right. And even if you choose to not finish your layouts right away, that's totally okay. The pieces are, yes, going to fall down to the bottom of your packaging, but everything will be there kind of where it needs to be. It goes together very quickly, and this has been tested and it works great. So I don't want you to worry about having to finish this later. Then I'm going to pick up the top light pink sheet, slide it over, and that should bring me to the base for layouts 5 and 6. That's at the top of page 4. Now to find those items, we have to empty the pocket labeled 5 and 6. Okay. And we're going to take this larger small floral print, put that flush up at the top here on the right, and then the smaller piece goes on the left. Then you should have one of those narrow ribbons. Same thing again, you'll add the glue to the page and then bring the little paper strip to the glue. Then you'll have your vertical picture perfect, and then flank that with another one of these dark pink strips. Then over here on the right, I'm leaving a little bit of that pink, light pink to shine through. And then below that, I'll add an aqua strip and then nest flowers are love's truest language onto it. We'll have a larger sea foam that you can nest with one of the slightly smaller aqua papers here. You should have a series of 3 seafoam pieces that line up in a row with nice spacing for that spot. And then you have that orange little title here that you can tuck in. And then I also, after fussy cutting this, I kind of had that situated right here, tucked it in there. Looks really sweet. Now on the left, running out of objects here, I've got my aqua pieces vertically placed there, 2 sea foam vertically up here. And then lastly, you've got this journaling prompt here, nesting, and then tucked behind that photo. You can add some ribbon to the side. Let's take a look at those finished pages now. This is layout 6. There's my fussy cut little flower tucked in there. I love how that turned out. And then once everything was attached, I just came through again with my bookbinding glue and added a few sweet little sequins to those spots. Here on the left, again, a trio of the pink confetti. And then I made a slot in this journaling prompt and made a loop of the aqua ribbon there. It's such a nice accent and it kind of ties in all that color. So very simple assembly for those 2 pages as always. Now I'll pick up the base of page 5 and scoot that over onto the neighbor. Then pink, dark pink is next. So I'll slide that over to reveal a second sheet of dark pink. We'll need to go back in our instructions now to page 3 at the bottom, layouts 3 and 4. And again, I'll grab everything, and there's quite a bit here in this pocket, 3 and 4. Right away, we have our 2 prints, and I'm going to place the smaller one on the left, so it's centered top to bottom. There's like a 1/2 inch here and here. And then this one on the right, same thing, centered from top to bottom. And you can see that sort of completes the print, but still allows that dark pink around it to show. Then I'll add this guy kind of next to it here. And to the right of that, you'll have the tiny print, the smaller print. Now there is a aqua strip and also a little pattern that can nest on top of it. Once these 2 pieces are attached, I would encourage you then to trim it at 5 3/4. It's just better to do it that way than having 4 pieces. You only have the 2 pieces, then trim it. The width from here to the gutter is 5 3/4, so that's how you can trim this piece. And it'll look reassembled when the pages are side by side. There is a larger photo mat that's going to sit right in the upper right corner and nest this. Really makes it pop, right? Let's take our 3 light pink mats and we'll add these to the left side. Now we have 3 aqua additional mats. So 2 are going to be horizontally placed here on the right, and then 1 will be vertical. And they each have a pair to nest with. 1, 2, 3. And then we have our little sleeve embellishment. You'll be able to fit that aqua piece right inside. I rounded those upper 2 corners and again added ribbon to that, added ribbon to the outside, and then finished with this placed on top. Now I trimmed around the shape, but I think I like it better untrimmed. You pick, and I put this kind of tucked in behind it. Now for this last pairing, you'll notice that my cut-apart is a little too long for my mat, but I decided that was okay. So after I added this so that I had an equal margin on top, left, and bottom, I simply trimmed off the excess and added it to the right edge with that kind of overhanging a little bit. How cool is that? Let's take a look at our finished 2 pages. On this one, we're going to add the 3 little sequins here. I rounded the corners, just the left top and bottom corner here. You can see how sweet that looks coming off the edge. And then I've got this trimmed up so that when these 2 pieces are married up, they're going to look really nice together. And then on the facing page, again, I cut the slot into the insert so you can pull it out. And you probably won't end up pulling it out unless you slice through your page protector and have this kind of on the top of the protector. To me, it's just kind of a sweet little visual, but if you want to put some journaling or another picture in there on each side, you can. And then again, more of that confetti, and I even nested one of the yellow with the pink for kind of a sweet look. Love how these 2 pages turned out. I hope you like them too. And now we can pick up, I'll move this over, the dark pink, slide it over to the right, slide this over, and now we have the layout 1 and 2 bases in front of us, and what's left in pocket 1 and 2 should finish things up for us nicely. So let's take our print up here, and one of the solid dark pink strips is going to marry up with the spread kindness around. And then the other half of that is going to be added to a pink print kind of through the middle of this page to finish the title, Like Wildflowers. At the bottom, we'll just use that 1-inch strip from the print, and then I did add some of the ribbon, wrapped it around that. So that's where that pink comes from. And then we do have 2 pink photos here. I did tilt them slightly and overlapped them. Watch for tangents. Don't let the tip of any of these corners touch any edges of anything. And let's see, on the right, I'll have the aqua here, and then a sea foam vertically, and another sea foam here. So what I did was I lined up these top edges, and then that helps determine where this is going to be placed. All kinds of little things left here. I've got a little strip of sea foam. I mean, I could have scrapped it, but why? When I can use it. It adds so much. And then how about a square dark pink, and then a rectangle dark pink. Wraps things up for, let's see, this cut apart and the rectangle. You had a little peach flower too. Once it's fussy cut, it adds to that spot. You got a little trio there now. This is a journaling prompt and matte. Then you have 2 more squares for this upper spot here to contain these 2 things. I had this one raised up a little bit to make room for my tilted mats. Another flower and leaf finishes things off over here. And then I've got my finished layout. Put a little sequin there and added this flower with foam adhesive for a nice pop. And finally the facing page here, I cut a slot, threaded it with ribbon, and ran it all the way down here. You could also just add a little piece of ribbon here and fake it. I had enough to go around. Same thing here. I wrapped this around the page, secured it, I guess around the strip itself, and then added a bow to the stretched ribbon. These 2 pieces, rounded those corners and added them to the layout with foam adhesive circles. Those are available from Club Scrap if you need some. I'll try to remember to add the link to the foam adhesive circles below, and I always cut them in half to make them go a little further. Well, I hope you really enjoyed assembling these Tiny Blossoms pages with me, seeing the process of starting out with an entire kit, doing all that trimming, and then assembly for success. So now that your pages are ready to go, grab your adhesive, get those pieces placed, and then grab your photos and finish up those pages. You will be amazed, if you haven't discovered this already, how much time you will save. Now don't forget to hit like, leave me a comment, and make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel. And if you're not already a member of our Club Scrap family, I invite you to join us there as well. Anyone can shop, but members do always save. I look forward to seeing you in another workshop from Club Scrap again soon. Thanks for joining me.